Okay, so what I find is that when we work with young people, we work, sometimes it can be a trap for us to work in isolation with young people, even if mum and dad, a good mum and dad, they're really well supportive of the young person and it was a relative that did the damage and all that sort of stuff. Often we won't recognise their own grief and loss, and that's what essentially that's what they're going through, a lot of blame. So this is awareness of what to look for in parents, because often parents will come to you first and say, my child's been sexually abused, I need help, I'm not sure what to do. Initially it was okay, he seemed all right, but now he's transitioning into adolescence, I'm not sure what to do. So what we got here is, the seven stages of grief. So parents often will respond in denial when they first hear about it. Oh, that's not true. Uncle so-and-so, he's a good guy, works hard, and got a family of his own, What? No, I don't believe it. What's happened? Then there's anger when they accept the truth that it has happened, and then they try and bargain and rationale it, and then depression, sadness, and then they come into a place of acceptance eventually, and that takes a lot of time for them to get to that place. But we need to be mindful that this isn't going to go away, and I know sometimes services are time poor in what they can provide for people. There's limited number of counselling sessions or limited time for support and all that sort of stuff. So sometimes we just got to be wise about what we can do and just be upfront about what we can do. Talk about our limitations as a service, but then be wise about maybe we could do some work and then in conjunction with someone else, or maybe we can recruit someone to come in periodically. Just got to think smart, think like how can we best support the parents throughout this process. Um, so so denial is a normal reaction for any parent to have some amount of denial when first hearing the highly emotional news that their child was sexually abused. Over time, more facts unfold, conversations occur about sexual abuse. Denial usually gives way to the next stage of grief. So they get angry, which I think is a good response. Once parental acceptance of at least some facts surrounding the sexual abuse has begun, anger will follow. This anger could be directed towards the perpetrator, child, or parent itself. So they might be angry with themselves for the inability to protect. I should have known better. They might be angry at the child, saying, well, it's all your fault. So the parent actually might not believe the facts and be angry at the child for creating the story. This anger includes the realization of the losses that the parent will face as a secondary victim of the child's sexual abuse. Non-offending parents will appear to suffer more losses. For example, if the perpetrator is a step-parent or a live-in partner, he or she will likely to ask to leave the home as a result of non-offending parent faces a loss of companionship and maybe even a friendship. And as a default position for us, the child, we believe the child. So it's not our job to say you're right or wrong. That's not our role. That's the role of the investigator. Over here we have a concept called mandatory reporting, and so our role is to hear the story and report to our coordinator, have a discussion about where that's got to go, and then make the report. And it's just out of our hands. Some services are a little bit, we work for services that are not obligated to mandatory report, but there is certain key agencies throughout Perth that are obligated to report these events. And then it's up to the Department of Child Protection to investigate with the Child Abuse Unit. They'll do all the homework, investigate and determine the story. But it's not our role to do that. We're not there to make a judgment of whether the child's telling the truth or the child's telling a lie. We believe the child, and that's our default position in our work. So bargaining, parents move from anger to a bargaining stage as greater acceptance of the sexual abuse occurs. So as you can see, it's a process that's not going to happen in like a matter of hours. Parents now accept the fact that the sexual abuse has occurred, but begin to struggle with the level of the impact of sexual abuse. So all that stuff previously about behaviours, learning difficulties, all that sort of stuff is actually going to impact the family dynamic, especially if mum and dad aren't the offenders, but it was a relative or a friend of the family, which is mostly the profile of offenders. It actually can destroy the family unit. So not only does it impact the young person, but then it becomes a ripple effect throughout the family. It affects other siblings, it affects the relationship between dad and mum, and all the stress and all the pressure and all that sort of stuff occurs. Child and family need for recovery. Bargaining occurs when parents look and hope for a fast and less painful recovery. Fast and less painful recovery. They want a quick fix, but the reality is there is no quick fix. but they're just so much in pain they just want, like, it's like a headache, just take some Panadol and make the headache go away. Unfortunately, it's not a quick fix. In doing so, they might try to minimise the impact of sexual abuse and unintentionally give the message that it will just go away. And the young person will pick that up. So if we don't talk about it, it'll just go away and we can go on and live our lives. Nice, but the reality is it won't go away because it'll impact on school, it'll impact on friends, it'll impact on maybe young Joey just not going to sports anymore, becomes isolated, sits in his room, plays Xbox all day and just totally disengages. So it won't go away. And it's better to face this reality than trying to minimise it. Depression and sadness, a normal response to serious changes suddenly forced upon one's life is sadness and depression. As parents move through this stage, they come to realise the extent of changes and the degree of impact on the child and family resulting from the sexual abuse. Parents in this stage acknowledge that recovery could be a long-term process and that the sexual abuse is not going to go away. Non-offending parent appears to experience the effects of this stage to a greater degree than parents of extra-familiar sexual abuse. Acceptance. Parents who enter the stage are accepting the facts and impact of sexual abuse. Recovery and healing process are no longer feared by the parents. Parents at this stage realise and acknowledge that their child and family can survive the losses, changes, and the recovery process.